All right, how's everyone doing? I'm Rich CELENZA. Thanks for checking out the Rich CELENZA Show. So what I'm going to call this podcast is, you get what you want, then what? Because I think what happens with a lot of people, just in my opinion, is they go after a lot of goals and dreams. And I think a lot of people actually succeed or come close. And it could be even simple things. So I'm not saying you have to become a multimillionaire. I'm not saying you have to become a professional athlete or very high level things. I'm just saying in general, I do think a lot of people have, I can't say standard goals, but kind of like a lot of other people's goals. It could be getting married, starting a family, getting a house, getting a certain type of car, maybe a certain type of job, or opening a certain type of business. And as time goes on, they accumulate these things. And I think then what happens, because I see this happen a lot with my family members, my friends, and my colleagues, that they kind of have all these goals set up, and they don't make a lot of goals beyond those goals to a certain degree. Sure, if you say you want one style house, you may want another house or a bigger house. But eventually I think people are like, wait a minute, this is the size house I want to stick with. This is all I really want to pay for electric bill, insurance, maintenance, the whole thing. And they kind of say this is it for now. They may find the community they want to live in, and then they find a couple cars. Sure, every 3-4 years they may get a different car, but they're kind of like, this is my budget. This is kind of what I'm willing to go with, I guess you could say. But back to getting the things you want, I think this is where a lot of people end up, in my opinion, maybe having a lot of bad habits. It could be smoking too much or drinking too much or sitting around too much, getting very lazy. Because it's hard, I think, and people don't want to admit it, to kind of have goals beyond your goals or want to do other things or just transition into something else besides what you've kind of transitioned into. I also think a lot of people kind of start living their lives through their kids, which is wonderful. I even did that for a long time. There's no question. There's nothing wrong with, you have kids and you start revolving most of your life around your children. You kind of forget who the hell you are and what you want to do. Or even in a relationship, I think a lot of us get married, have kids, and if you really love your kids or they're involved with different sporting activities or whatever it is, it could be, I don't know what they do. They could be scholars for all I know. They could be whatever. You kind of lose track of yourself a little and maybe even who you're with marriage-wise, or even if you're not married, but you just kind of focus in on the kids, and then the kids get older and then they're kind of done with you and they kind of move on. They could start hanging out with their friends or just going off to college or just leaving the house in general. And again, you did what you wanted to do. I really think a lot of people do. They raised even if they went through a divorce, they may have gotten a divorce and remarried, but they still kind of accomplished or didn't realize how much they did accomplish. Now, what do? What are you going to do? And I see this with a lot of people where they're almost stumped and they're like, I guess you could say, because I'm in this age, in my 50s. I'm in my early 50s. But I see this happening with a lot, even in their 40s or late 40s, and a lot of different, I shouldn't just say older middle-aged guys. But I even see middle-aged guys in their 35, 40, and of course they're going to maybe do things like, hey, I'm going to just take on golf, because a lot of my friends golf. Or, hey, I'm going to join a tennis club, hypothetically, or I'm going to hang out at a cigar place at night, which is wonderful. I mean, you got to do what you got to do. But I also do see, and I should say a lot of my friends actually, we have a lot of discussions, or people I know saying, what do I do? What am I going to do next? Like, they fall into a rut, and it's not easy. I think we fall in ruts a lot of times in our lives. It could be, again, in the relationship we're in. We could be falling in a rut at work. We could be falling in a rut just coming home, not knowing what to do, being bored out of our minds. It's not easy to keep life always interesting. I used to discuss this in my past before, and I think I might have wrote about it in one of my books, or maybe not, that life for the most part a lot of times is boring. You kind of do the same shit over and over again, right? For the most part. You kind of hang with the same people, Your family members are most likely the same people a lot of times, unless you have other people getting married or coming into your life. Sure, there's different people if you have kids and in-laws and all that. But for the most part, life is kind of a routine. And this is one of the reasons I bring this up too. It's mainly because of, I think, physically, is what I should say, I think is what happens too with people gaining a lot of weight and getting unhealthier after they hit a certain age again. The one thing I think we focus in on a lot, and I know I did this as well, is getting all these possessions, and I discuss this a lot. So you're really caught up in possessions, making sure you have a home. Obviously, you're protecting your kids, you have insurance and all these things. And you kind of not always pay attention to your health as much as you should. Some do, some don't. But after you hit a certain point, back to your late 40s or 50s or whatever, your kids are more grown up for the most part, or you're an empty nester or whatever the hell is going on, I think a lot of people gain a lot of weight. And I think what happens too, it slows them down. They start to think, oh, now I'm at this age, I just got to accept it. I just did a podcast actually recently. What age is your mindset? And I know we all have different mindsets at different ages, but a lot of people kind of cop out and go, wow, I'm here now. I can't do that. I'm too old. I can't risk this because I'm too old. I can't lose that much weight. I'm too old. Or I can't do that. There's always these excuses revolved around their age. I'm here to tell you, and I said it before, that's just, again, your mindset. Do not fall for these traps. I'm telling you right now. And if sometimes, too, to kind of reboot your life, and nobody wants to hear that because they think they got to start all over again, it may be time after maybe you got all the things you wanted or close to them. It may be time to, think differently. Maybe think about different possessions, or maybe think about doing something different maybe you've never done before that you've maybe, kind of hid from everybody, hypothetically. It could be you wanting to learn at 50 years old, hey, I always wanted to surf, or I always wanted to maybe go buy a Sea-Doo, I'm just using for an example, or even start an online business, or hey, you know what, I do like photography, maybe I'll just start hanging out with some photographers, or maybe I'll just go out and start shooting, or I talk about writing a book, or whatever the hell you want to do, just starting, a whole kind of, I don't want to say a new life, but a different mindset. And stop kind of also getting caught up with what everyone is doing and what everyone has done in the past or that you've done in the past. And I think I'm going to wrap it up with saying, I think too, when we hit a certain age, people just paralyze themselves with having an identity and they don't want anyone else to see a different side of them, especially if they get older. It could be a change of wardrobe. It could be a different change in hairstyle. I don't know what the hell it is. It could be a different identity change in your interest as far as, maybe you're burnt out on golf. Because I see this with a lot of people too, is they kind of get caught doing the same thing over and over. They don't enjoy it anymore. Maybe you want to join a tennis club. I know it's hard to say, hey, I got to leave these guys because they're always doing this. But maybe it's time to meet some new friends doing this. And that could be even work related. It could be whatever, and I'm going to go back to it. Once you get what you want, then what? Because you really got to sometimes think about that. You may even be somebody who hasn't got what you want, but hey, think about what you want and then honestly approach it as you already have it. Then what are you going to do with it too? So that's a whole nother type of podcast. But yeah, I also think a lot of people get what they want. And two things happen. They didn't realize all the upkeep or the things that they wanted, how much money, time it would take to keep them at the level you want to. And also getting them in kind of, the other part of it is getting them and being bored and saying, wow, this wasn't what I thought it was going to be. And now what? And I think that happens with a lot of people with homes or boats or a lot of possessions. Could even be jewelry. You get it and then you're like, okay, I got it now. I finally got my Rolex. I'm wearing it. Now what? I worked so hard to get this. Do I buy another one? Well, I don't think I need another one. Well, should I start collecting watches? Well, I'm not that much into watches. But what's the next goal kind of that you're going to go after maybe to make more money or just do different things in life in general? So just want to do a podcast on that. So anyone out there, you got any questions or comments, hit me up. And I wish you nothing but the best.